So what I want to do here is dip my toe in the water and have a discussion about DC's Injustice comics. And assuming this becomes popular enough, then it may be a series that we continue since the Injustice stories are some of the best that DC has ever written. So the Injustice comics come out of the 2013 Injustice Gods Among Us video game for the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, as well as various other platforms. Because the video game series was so popular, garnering a rating of 80% or better across the board due to the fact that it presented a dystopian future ruled by Superman and supported by other superheroes, the Injustice comic line was introduced as a way to capitalize on the game's popularity by providing fans with a prequel. Written by Tom Taylor, who had proved himself capable as a writer with various Star Wars titles under Dark Horse in addition to several musicals and plays, during a 2013 interview with Comic Vine, Taylor had stated that writing the series was as difficult as it was simple. While this seems contradictory, what this means is that because the Injustice video game had a plot in and of itself centering on the Joker destroying Metropolis, combined with the deaths of Lois Lane and the unborn child of herself and Superman, the comic series had to be written in a manner that maintained the core element of the game's plot, but also provided clarity on the events that transpired leading up to the opening cinematic. On the other hand, because the continuity of Injustice was separate from the New 52, which was launched in 2011, Taylor had free reign on the backstories of the characters as well as the entire DC universe as it pertained to Injustice, meaning he could introduce popular characters and teams into the series while leaving out unpopular characters and teams. To this end, Injustice Volume 1 opened by focusing on the relationship between Clark Kent and Lois Lane, leaving Superman's backstory open and allowing the reader to fill in the history of Clark by referencing any of the previously established origin stories. Taylor maintained the element of almost all Superman publications, which saw Lois Lane keeping his character grounded. What I mean here is that with Superman hailing from an extinct race with only fragments of their technology in his possession, while he was raised by the Kents on Earth, Superman himself was effectively isolated and alone. As the last son of Krypton, Superman found solace in the love that was shared between himself and Lois, and that while their physiology separated the two, in the end, she made him feel as if Earth was a home of his. As a result, over the course of time, a romance formed between the two, leading to a coupling and Lois becoming pregnant. What's also funny about this story is that Taylor focuses on Clark's response to learning of Lois's pregnancy by closing the gap between his alien heritage and what it means to be a father. Again, what I mean here is that like most soon-to-be parents, after learning of the news, Superman begins pacing back and forth while focusing on the direction that their lives will take after bringing a child into the world. For Superman, his identity as Clark Kent is more important now than it has ever been, and while there are various people at Star Labs who can analyze Lois to ensure that the baby will be born healthy, the other half of this equation is the city of Metropolis itself. While it is their current residence, in truth, Smallville was his first home on Earth, and as such, moving there would allow both himself and Lois to raise their child away from prying eyes, as well as attempted attacks from would-be criminals seeking revenge on Lois for any articles she may have written as a journalist. However, while the two take time to focus on the moment and revel in the fact that they are pregnant, Taylor begins to set the stage for Injustice by having Lois's attention drawn to her phone. Receiving an anonymous tip that a member of the city council is taking a payoff at the Metropolis docks, Lois dresses herself for the purpose of investigating and documenting the transaction, which can then be printed, allowing the councilman to be brought to justice. Transitioning to Batman, Superman arrives, during which time we're informed that a piece of technology has been stolen from Star Labs. While we're not told what it is, the purpose of this segment is to establish the friendship that exists between Bruce and Clark as a way to demonstrate how far the two will fall following the death of Lois and the destruction of Metropolis. As a yin and yang to each other, Superman is as much a jovial child as he is a hardened warrior. Batman, on the other hand, is basically a big grump, and the chemistry between the two had led them to become extremely close friends, something that becomes apparent when Superman informs Batman that both Lois and Clark want him to be the godfather of their child. For those who are unaware, the position of godfather or godmother is one of incredible honor, and that Superman is telling Batman that should something happen to him and Lois, Bruce is being asked to look after his son and ensure that he grows into the world and becomes a man that can bring honor to the memory of his parents. Now transitioning to Lois herself, after arriving at the location provided by the anonymous tipster with Jimmy Olsen in tow, the expectation of the two is that the tip is fake due to the fact that they've received multiple anonymous tips in the past, most of which never panned out. However, after spotting a shady individual lurking in the corner, Jimmy Olsen is shot through the lens of his camera, killing him in the process. Revealing himself to Lois Lane, we learned that the tip was a setup by both the Joker and Harley Quinn, as the two intended to kidnap Lois. Transitioning to the next morning, what Taylor does here is leave it to us to fill in the blanks. With Superman arriving at the docks and locating Jimmy's corpse along with a Joker card, The indication here seems to be that Lois never came home, resulting in Superman setting out to find her by traveling to the Metropolis docks. With Jimmy Olsen dead, the message is clear. Lois had been kidnapped by the Joker and is inciting Superman to follow him. Now, picking up with Batman at Star Labs, we learn that the missing items are several pieces of unidentified equipment, as well as kryptonite. While Batman's line of questioning to the scientists indicates skepticism of their intentions, the scientist states that their experimentation with kryptonite was not malicious. Instead, they intended to see if it could be used for scientific and medical purposes, like providing a power source or curing diseases. Taking the detective approach and demanding a list of everyone who would have had access to Star Labs or knew that they were in possession of kryptonite, Batman is suddenly met with the arrival of Superman. Now, during this segment, Taylor establishes several important things that tie into the history of Superman and even the Justice League itself within the Injustice universe. The first is the significance of Lois in relation to Clark. Referencing what we said earlier about Lois keeping Clark grounded, in many ways she was a drug of sorts, and in particular, an emotional drug. For Clark, he needs Lois as she serves to remind him that he's not alone, and that in his desperation, he has no concern over the scientists learning about his personal identity. The second is that with Superman begging Batman for help, Bruce calls in the full roster of the Justice League and the reserves for the purpose of finding Lois. While some individuals like Green Arrow and Cyborg question why the entire Justice League is being called in to locate a person who seems of little importance, the indication here is that no one other than Wonder Woman and Batman are aware of Superman's identity as Clark Kent, or that he's in a relationship with Lois. Now, this stands in stark contrast to previous continuities where the Justice League had divulged their identities to one another in order to instill their trust, as well as ensure that each member was able to protect the loved ones of everyone else. And so with Barry Allen having searched the entire city of Metropolis using his incredible speed, while he was unable to locate Lois, he did discover something worth bringing to Batman's attention. With Star Labs functioning as a science and technological research group operating globally, in addition to their base of operations in Gotham, they also have a base of operations in Metropolis. Arriving at its location, Batman is led to the deceased body of Jonathan Crane, also known as Scarecrow, who seems to have been killed by the Joker toxin. Following this, Batman and the rest of the League are informed by Wonder Woman that one of the dock workers in Metropolis had ran as soon as he was spotted. Using her lasso, which forces those ensnared to tell the truth, Wonder Woman had learned that the Joker and Harley Quinn had hijacked a submarine and taken Lois Lane with them. With Superman overhearing this information and responding by searching the waters around Metropolis, he eventually located the sub where he removes it from the water and places it on land. However, once he enters, we find both Harley Quinn and Joker wearing gas masks and working on Lois Lane. At the same time though, Superman begins to become woozy after being exposed to the gases within. And so using the information that's been established so far, the gases within appear to be a variation of the fear toxin used by the Scarecrow, something that's confirmed when Superman hallucinates Doomsday. Battling his foe and taking to the sky and away from the city, the Joker and Harley Quinn use the distraction to take their leave. Now, adding a bit of comedy to the story which has been lacking this element so far, Harley Quinn puts up a bit of a fuss over the fact that she's never had a submarine before and as a result, has become very taken with it after giving it the name Gunter. However, where most of the stories depict the Joker insane and nonsensical, in this story, Tom Taylor kind of walks this middle line in that the Joker seems relatively sane, in that he recognizes that because of their actions in kidnapping Lois, the arrival of Superman and the fact that the Justice League constantly maintain contact on their missions, with a submarine sitting on land, it is highly likely that the Justice League will know exactly where they are. Now from here, the story doesn't actually allow much in the way of interpretation. With the Joker and Harley being captured by Hal Jordan followed by the arrival of Wonder Woman, Batman, and the Flash, the Joker taunts Batman a bit by referencing the fact that the Flash had brought him here. While Taylor doesn't really do much to expand on this, in truth, this is likely just a demonstration of the Joker going on one of his inane rambles. Furthermore, with Batman discovering that the interior of the submarine is filled with the Scarecrow's fear toxin, the intention of Wonder Woman is to use her lasso on the Joker to discover the location of Lois Lane due to the fact that none of them are aware of Superman's hallucination. However, because of Batman's experience with the Joker, Tom Taylor continues to walk this kind of line with the Joker's insanity by having Batman ward Wonder Woman off due to the fact that with the Joker being insane, there's no telling what he would say. In addition to this, because the lasso requires those who are ensnared to tell the truth, with the Joker being insane, there would be no way to know if what he's saying is true, since his insanity makes it impossible for him to tell the difference between what's real and what's fantasy. And so with the conversation between Batman and the Joker leading to Bruce realizing what's going on, We learn that when Lois was kidnapped, the Joker had surgically planted a trigger inside of her body, moved a nuclear warhead from the submarine to the heart of Metropolis, and set the trigger for the nuclear warhead to Lois's heartbeat. Furthermore, while Superman would normally be immune to the Scarecrow's fear toxin, the Joker had laced the toxin with the kryptonite he stole from Star Labs, which weakened Superman and made him susceptible, leading to his hallucination of Doomsday. Following this, after revealing that the bomb will detonate once Lois's heartbeat stops, Batman comes to the realization that Superman is not battling Doomsday, and instead is battling Lois. Switching to Superman himself, we find that he's taken Doomsday out of the atmosphere and into space, where the toxin wears off, leading to him realizing that he's just killed Lois. And so with her heart stopping and detonating the warhead, Metropolis is completely destroyed as it's engulfed in a nuclear explosion. With that being said, we're going to bring this video to an end, and let me know if you guys are a big fan of the Injustice series. I personally think it's one of the best stories that DC's written in decades. With that being said, I will catch you guys later. Peace.